Welcome to the Chicago Bears Podcast, a presentation of ESPN Chicago, Chicago's home for sports. Here's your host, Pat, the designer.
Bear down, Bears fans. The week is coming to a close. Another day closer to training camp, but we got the good kid in the building. Yurko's here with us for another Friday. Of course, Pat the designer back at it again. This is the Chicago Bears podcast, and Yurk, I'm going to let you do the talking because I really want to get your opinion straight out of the gate. No interest. Hit like, subscribe, all that good stuff. 5 stars. Yurk, a week after saying the Chicago Bears would make the playoffs,
yeah,
Colin Cowherd says that Justin Fields is a bust.
Interesting.
Based off of Justin Fields saying that he believes he's a top 5 running quarterback of all time. He listed his 5, talked about how Cam, Randall, MVP, Super Bowl appearance, blah, blah, blah. Steve Young, he threw in there as well, 4-time champ. He threw
Bobby
Steve
Douglas.
Young.
Bobby Douglas used to do it all the time back
Some
in the day.
great names.
Before anybody was doing it, he was doing it.
But what are your thoughts on what Colin Cowherd had to say about Justin Fields?
Well, the first thing you take a look at him, he's a work in progress. We all know that.
100%.
They're hoping for improvement this year. He says he'd like to throw for 4,000 yards, which would be a blessing.
I would love it. First
He'd
ever.
automatically vault right to the top of quarterbacks that ever played in the city of Chicago if he could do that. Because we've never had a 4,000-yard rusher. You know, there's 12 teams. 12 teams. Oh, no, 11 teams that have a 5,000-yard passer.
Yep. We've never had a 4,000-yard one.
11 teams have had a 5,000-yard passer, and the Bears have never had one. Tampa's had 2. You know that? Tampa's had 2. Tom Brady and Jameis Winston.
Yeah.
So they've had 2. So, that's the first thing. Our quarterback is a work in progress, so you have to acknowledge that.
100%.
Secondly, I don't go to national pundits when I want to find out about local teams. I go to the local guys that cover local stuff because all you get out of national guys are talking points.
Mm-hmm.
You get a talking point. You get barely the top 5% of anything that's happening within that team or any real knowledge of what's happening with the individual player. And it's just by nature of what they're doing. They got to cover everything. And there's no way in the world everybody can know everything all the time. It doesn't work that way. So anytime you hear, Colin Cowherd, anybody doing the stuff nationally, Mike Greenberg, Dan Patrick, Jim Rome, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't need to hear it. If I'm going cross country and I can't get nothing on reception and I want to listen to one of these guys, I could stand listening to them for a handful of minutes before I got to turn it and ultimately go to put a CD in. Listen to a CD.
You still doing CDs? You still doing the CDs?
Who is it?
What's your go-to CD?
Who is it? Warren Zevon.
I respect it so much.
Warren Zevon or Bad Luck Streak and Dancing School. Down on your knees and pray. Yeah, it's good stuff. But yeah, I don't go to national pundits because they really don't know what the hell they're talking about. It's like me talking about the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. What do I know? They got Shohei, who's great. They got Mike Trout, who's great, but injured. And they've never been to the playoffs. Okay, great. That's what I know. That's what I can talk about.
Yeah.
Doesn't really make me a sports expert about the L.A. Anaheim Angels of Anaheim of Orange County. It doesn't.
Of Vegas.
It doesn't. So I don't worry about it. And then when they contradict themselves in the manner of 5, 6, 7 days, they're going to make the playoffs, but they're not going to do this.
Yeah.
So it doesn't bother me. It's just that's part of what the national thing is.
Yeah.
It's all you're going to get.
Yeah.
You're not going to get anything in depth. You're going to get nothing. You're just going to get some guy that's got to say something so he can keep his name in the news and stay somewhat relevant. That's what you get with those guys. So I'm not upset at them or not angry at them. It's the nature of what they're doing.
Yeah.
So just remember, have zero expectations out of any national pundits, and you'll never be disappointed. I don't have any expectations. I'm never disappointed. Just remember that. That's okay.
I'm not going to lie. My whole reason of bringing this to the podcast was so that you guys could hear that from somebody who's not me, who just seems like the angry YouTube guy that's always like, oh my God, they're disrespecting our team. They don't know. They last year, my favorite thing
they don't know because it's impossible to know everything.
And why is he?
It's impossible.
Why would he watch? Yeah. That's what I've always said. Like whenever anybody's like, "Well, he's not watching." We won 3 football games last season. Right. Why is he watching?
Right. So here's your other thing. You got 32 NFL teams.
Yep.
You've got 30 Major League Baseball teams.
Yep.
You got 30 NBA basketball teams. You've got 30 NHL teams. I don't know if I said NHL already. How the hell are you going to have a mastery of 122 teams?
Yeah.
And then pretend like you know something about college.
Yeah.
And then you're going to pretend like you know something about 120 some odd Division I programs in college football.
Yeah.
And you're an expert in something that's going on. You can't do it.
You know the crash course.
So as long as you understand that they're not experts in anything, but their delivery is good, they're here to entertain, they're here to inform. You like to think sometimes they're here to educate, but that's hardly ever the case. And it's not taking a shot. It
is what it is.
I don't do national radio.
You cover Chicago.
It's hard to do national radio. I cover Chicago. I like to think that I know a lot about our local teams. And even then, just covering 5, 6, 7 teams, it's not as easy as people think.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
It's always funny to me because you can tell. The one thing that I can always tell about Colin, when things are getting a little slow, he knows who to poke at.
Yeah.
Poke at Chicago. You poke at New York. You poke at LA.
There's a passionate fan base there. Yeah. You can poke at it and they'll be quick to defend. Though if you poke the White Sox, nobody cares.
It feels like the White Sox are poking themselves sometimes. Take that however you want to take that.
It's like
take that however you want to take.
It's poking the dead possum. Only the White Sox did the dead possum that's not playing possum.
It's actually dead. It's actually dead. One of the greatest Geico commercials of all time.
Can I tell you, since we opened it up right away,
Let's do it.
I'm going to give you some. I heard something on our air the other day. Somebody telling me that a breakout year for Chase Claypool would be 800 yards. Breakout year for Chase Claypool will be 800 yards. Hasn't Chase Claypool already had 1,000 yards?
I was going to say, let me double check that.
How do you break out?
Wasn't his rookie year 1,000-yard
right,
season?
That's my point.
I might be wrong.
How do you break out and set the barometer or the bar at 800 for a breakout season for Chase Claypool? So I first of all, I don't get that. Secondly, 800 divided by 17, you can do the math. I know you can. 47 yards a game.
It's
47 yards a game.
Let me ask you this.
Nobody is breaking out of anywhere, catching 47 yards a game to think that you're breaking out of something. You haven't broken out of crap yet.
Yeah. No, 100%.
When I hear stuff like that, and it was said on our station, and I'm just like, 800 yards is not a breakout year. I'm sorry. It doesn't work that way.
His most career yards, rookie year, 873 yards. Year 2 was 860 yards, and he had a down year last year, 461 between two teams.
Sorry, what he's already done is not a breakout year.
Yeah.
It's not. Now, I know he had 1 year we had 9 touchdowns.
That's rookie year. That's rookie year. Second year, I believe, 4.
9 touchdowns. So you know what a breakout year is? 1,200 yards, 12 touchdowns.
Yeah.
That's a breakout year. That's him saying, look at me. I'm here. I've arrived. I want to get paid. That's what it is.
Do we need, let me ask you this. Do people need to upgrade in their minds what the good numbers are where we are in sports now? Because a lot of times, right, we always hear he's 1,000-yard back. You do the math on that.
67 yards a game.
That's not a good, that's an okay running back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's not 100-yard rusher week in and week out. Is it time for people to upgrade? What would you say is the new number that you need to be looking at yards wise from running backs, from receivers, for you to say that's a number one guy?
I'd say if you're a running back and you can give me 1,800 total yards.
Receiving and rushing.
1,800 total yards. I'd say, hey, it's pretty damn good running back.
Yeah.
And some guy might give you 1,600 and 200. Either way, 1,800 total yards. And then when you get those rare seasons where you get 2,200, 2,300, 2,400, well, then you've got to acknowledge, like McCaffrey, I think he caught 1,000 yards and he rushed for 1,000 yards. That's pretty damn good. It's pretty damn good. It's still got a ceiling of what you want to pay that guy because he's running back, but that's pretty good.
But he's setting himself apart.
Right. Yeah, you're in pretty good shape. LaDainian Tomlinson, I think, was one of those guys. Marshall Faulk was one of those guys. Yeah. Any guy that's rushed for 2,000 yards, obviously. Corey Dillon did that. Jamal Lewis did that. I think Derrick Henry did that.
I believe D. Henry does have a 2,000-yard rushing season.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you do that, and it's one season, it's tough. That's why the guy that was the stud, the number one running back in my mind, never to be argued about ever, is Barry Sanders.
I'll agree with that.
Barry Sanders averaged 5 yards a rush and damn near 100 yards a game. Not only that, he averaged his averages on turf and on grass are almost identical.
Explain that. Explain why you have to look at
because
that.
everybody said he was a turf guy. He's a product of turf. He could cut on the turf. He could do this on the turf. Yeah, but they're identical. Of what he did on turf and what he did on grass, whatever the games were, how many ever they cut him down. It was almost 100 yards per game in each. Might have been 100.5 and 95.5.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? They were right there. So anybody wants to knock him, you make a mistake. 5 yards every time you touch the ball. And, they, for one reason or another, didn't run him on the goal line when Bobby Ross got there. But he was an ankle breaker.
Yeah.
I've seen more guys stutter step. John Lynch. I've seen them all. He'd get him in the hole. He'd give him a little bit of and they'd be gone. He'd show him the leg and then he'd take it back.
Hold on. Give him a little bit of what?
Give him a little bit of
He clipped that right there.
I've been there. I've known. He gave me the and then he was gone. And then on his way, I'm getting up off the ground. On the way back, he tripped over me.
Oh, that's going to be
He didn't realize I was still there. I was so unathletic, I couldn't get up quick enough. He'd come back and he'd trip up over the top.
You got the tackle.
Yeah.
You got the tackle. That's all that matters.
The great Albert Collins once said, how can I get your love when you keep on snatching it back? How could I get Barry's leg when he kept on snatching it back?
Show your little leg and took it away.
Give it to me, and he just take it away. It's like my prom date. She showed me it, but then she took it away. So evil.
Ladies and gentlemen, only
So
on the Chicago
cruel.
Bears podcast, man.
Mm.
No, I love the fact that we're getting this.
My eyes are particularly blue today on the podcast.
They're going a little blue.
There's
It's the lighting. It's the lighting.
Yeah,
the lighting is
it
on
must
point for
be.
you.
Whoa. And those are real, ladies. Those aren't fabricated.
I just love the fact that it seems like your thinking is not the thinking of everybody around the league. Everybody, right? You still get that he's a 1,000-yard rusher. He's a 1,000-yard receiver.
Right.
And when you break that down, that's not exactly where it is. I think we need to be a lot more progressive when we look, even with how I look at Justin Fields coming into this season. People think it's crazy for me to say he should be a 3,800-yard passer. That is an average quarterback in today's NFL. Right. We need to be forward thinking and stop thinking in the mindset of, well, if we had that guy, he'd be the best guy the Bears ever had.
Right.
That doesn't mean he's great.
Right. You can throw for 3,400 yards. You throw for 200 yards a game. What's 200 yards a game in this league? That's why your elite quarterbacks are chucking it for 5,000 and they're throwing for 30 plus touchdowns.
Yeah.
Yeah. And these quarterbacks sometimes are throwing for 50 plus and 45 plus. But that's their crazy year. That's when they're going to be MVP type years.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
No.
But a normal year for you is quarterback that's thrown for 30 plus touchdowns, 34 touchdowns. He's thrown for 4,400 yards. That's quarterback.
Yeah.
That's the guy you're going to go out there and you're going to win with. That's the guy that's giving you 270 yards a game. 270 yards a game. That's what he's doing for you. You can win with a guy that's going to do that for you. And that's what you're looking for.
And the tough part about all of it is those are also guys that are like Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff. Those are the numbers that guys like that are putting
right.
up.
The difference between those guys and the other guys is they're giving you 34 touchdowns and 4 interceptions.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
Jameis Winston gave you 5,000 yards.
5,000 yards.
He turned the ball over 30 plus times.
He gave you the 30 for 30 season.
Yeah.
The 30 for 30. I can't wait for that documentary.
Right. Yeah. It'll be a good one. How you can be a proficient passer and still not be a proficient passer.
I love that. My favorite thing about all of that is after the season, he's like, I think I'm going to go get LASIK. It's like, you couldn't see? Yeah. The entire time you've been playing, you couldn't see?
Well, then that makes sense. Okay. That's why it was never a shock when Brady went there. Well, how are they going to get better? Easy. He's going to stop the turnovers.
That was it.
And they had 2 overtime losses in that year when Jameis Winston was there too. 2
yeah.
overtime losses.
Yeah.
I go, so how do they get better? Easy. They got the quarterback there for a reason because he's more accurate, and they're going to go about their business winning games.
Well, you knew everything else was
then
in
it's
place
hard to repeat.
Yeah, you knew everything else was in place.
Then it's hard to repeat.
We got training camp coming up next week, Yerk.
Yeah.
Starting it off Wednesday, and I can't let you out of here without a great Yerko story because you've got so many of them.
Training camp stories.
I need training camp stories, Yerk. What's your best training camp story?
So listen, when we're in Green Bay, what we did once we became a good team, I was there in 91, practice squad. 92 is when Holmgren came in. And then we got Favre, but Favre wasn't quite the finished product. 93 was the first year we made the playoffs, right?
Right.
So in camp in 1994, before the 94 season, we knew we were going to be a good team. And we'd play cards at night, especially when it was special teams practice the next day, and that was the only practice. It was going to be special teams. It was going to be about 90 minutes long. It was going to be over all the teams going back and forth. Some guys would have to go, like I'd have to go because I was on kickoff return. But we knew it was going to be an easy practice. It wasn't going to be physical. It was just going to be legs. So, hell, we play cards at 5, 6 in the morning. We play Boo-Ray. And I played with all the guys from Florida State. And we had like 5, 6 Florida State guys on the team. And then Sean Jones would play. George Teague was an Alabama guy. But Boo-Ray was no joke. And, I played with Edgar Bennett. I played with Leroy Butler. Ron Johnson was the tight end out of Florida State. We had a receiver from Florida State. And so we'd all get together, we'd play. And it was me, right, and 5 black dudes. And guess what they were playing? Boo Whitey. That's how they played the game. They come in with me, and it wouldn't be 2-2-1 split. 3 guys are playing the game, 2-2-1. You split, nobody wins the pot. You redeal, you go. No, it was so one of them was going to win, and they were going to try to go ahead and get me to pay the pot. And I told them, guys, I said, this is not sporting. This is not sporting. You can ask them. Leroy Butler tell you ever talk to Leroy Butler, ask him about the Boo-Ray games and them playing Boo Whitey. And Whitey was me. And that's who they were coming after. So, but we used to have fun. We played cards all the time. Training camp, we played cards. We'd play cards on the plane. Yeah, we'd have a good time. And then in Jacksonville, boy, we played a lot of cards too there. Leon Searcy.
What's the
not a good card player.
What's the most you've won in a card game?
The most I ever won was $7,200, and I cut a Peruvian on that. I was about 10-5, and then I cut a Peruvian on that deal. That's what we call it if you cut a deal.
Right.
So you can get paid, you cut him a deal.
Right. Yeah.
So I took $3,300 off what he owed me, and and then it came to fruition. And then Brad Boyer goes, "Hey, did you get paid?" I said, "Yeah, he just cut me a check." He goes, "That mother," and he went in to get paid too.
Oh, he didn't get paid.
No, he didn't get paid yet. It's the end of the season, champ. We just lost in the playoffs. I said, if you don't get your money now, you ain't never going to get your money. So, but yeah, and the most I probably ever lost was $3,000.
That's not bad. It means you're up.
Yeah,
it means you're up.
The first time I ever played cards on a plane was with the Miami Dolphins. We're playing between the sheets.
You got to explain that game there. You can't just leave that one.
So between the sheets, you lay a card here, say it's 5. Lay a card here, and it's a jack.
Right.
So all you got to do is get between the 5 and the jack. So you got it 6 through a 10. Will be a winner for you. So 5 out of 13 cards will help you. So the odds aren't that great. Second ace is always high. So say they put a 2 down and they put a king down. Well, now you've got a slew of cards in between, the 2 and the king
that you can win off.
So the 3 through the queen are winners for you. So what is that? 11 cards?
Yeah.
10 cards.
10 cards.
It's 10 cards. So those are winners. 10 out of 13 cards are going to be winners for you. If you get a 2 or a king, you double. So if you go pot and there's 1,000 in the pot, 2 or a king come up, you got to pay double. You got to put 2,000 in the pot. If you go pot and then 7, boom, you take the money, and then we start all over. We re-ante and we go.
I'm not gonna lie, I kind of want to play that game. That actually sounds like a heck of a fun game.
So we played in Miami, and then it was like Clayton. Clayton would play, Duper would play, Moreno would play, Jimmy Jensen would play. Then I'm over there looking. I'm overlooking the shoulders, the little like Scrappy Doo, jumping up. And then I put 20 in the pot one time. And I didn't have the scratch those guys had. Those guys had the scratch. I didn't have no scratch. I had a little bit of scratch, but not a lot of scratch. So when it got hot and heavy, and Marino didn't care. If he had 2 cards that were somewhat playable, 4 jack for him is a playable hand.
Yeah.
6 winning hands. That's playable. 50-50 for him in his mind. He's going to play it.
Right.
But he can go pot. And all he's got to do is hit one of the 4.
Right.
And he's a happy camper. But he had the funds where it didn't make a difference. He was fine. No matter. You gotta be a little bit more judicial with your decision making. I wasn't as financially strapped as those guys. As liquid either. I wasn't as liquid as those guys were.
Yeah, you got to have it with you.
We always had fun. It was a good time. Training camp was arduous. Early on, training camp for me was necessary because that's where I tried to make the team.
Right.
In 93 was the last year I really kind of had to bust my ass to make the team because Wolf had a different kind of look at defensive tackle that he wanted to be in there. So when I made the team in 93 and had the season I had in 93, I was okay. They knew I could play.
Yeah.
So that wasn't an issue. So 94, 95, 6, 7, 8, 9, when I finished out, I never was threatened by training camp ever that bad things were going to happen to me. I always knew that I was fine. I could play. It wasn't an issue.
You were going to make the team.
I was going to make the team. I was going to be okay.
What are you using training camp most for?
Get in shape.
That's all. That's all.
Getting the type of shape that you need to get that soreness out. You got to hit for the first 10 days. You need to get that camp soreness in you. You need to lose your legs. You need to get your legs back. That's what you need it for. Just to sharpen everything up. And then, this is where you work on your stunts.
Yeah.
With your teammates. This is when you get all that timing down. This is when you get everything down. All your calls, everything. When it's live, when you're going damn near full speed, as a defensive lineman, I still got to listen to what's happening behind me.
Right.
Linebacker make a call that's going to affect us, or it's going to change the play altogether. Because we got a blitz on, and all of a sudden they come out in a formation that this blitz ain't going to work against. They used to just call orange or apple, and we go to a base under 43 or an over 34. They go back just to base defense.
Right.
So you had to be listening, and if it went apple, orange, you had to know what the hell we were doing. So
do you think that players are still using it the same way today when they're coming in shape? You see DeMarcus Walker already looking like a monster of a man. Justin Fields coming in.
But the description I had made where the body's got to get sore,
right?
And that can't be replicated without pounding.
Okay.
You got to be hitting for that to be replicated.
Yeah.
And so it needs to get sore. Your legs need to go. Then they need to come back. And then that soreness just becomes a part of everyday life, and you become accustomed to it.
It never goes away. You just become accustomed to it. That's how it goes.
You end up being sore for the better part of 4 or 5 months. Then you manage it. Then you manage your soreness.
Yeah.
And the older you get, the tougher it is. Those young kids are spry as rutting bucks. They don't care.
They like the soreness.
They're flying around there all the time, nose in the air. Who can I hit? Who can I go after? What can I do? Yeah. Meanwhile, the old guys are always looking for breaks. Like when I was young, Rich Moran and oh God, what was his name? Jimmy Campen was the center.
Yeah.
And they go, man, slow down. Ronnie Hallstrom, slow down. What are you doing? Slow down. Come on. He goes, man, we got to play on Sunday. I said, yeah. I said, you guys are going to be here. You guys are cashing the big checks. I'm on the practice squad. They pull me aside and say, hey, we got to give him a look. We got to give him a look. Okay. I go, so I got to have the delicate balance of how I do it.
Yeah.
So have the coaches hate me and be fired, or have the players hate me and still have a job. So it's easy. When I was on the practice squad for 2 years.
Yeah.
You let the players hate you. But if a guy's hurt and is injured, then he doesn't want to be messed with.
Yeah.
You just got to know. Form up, boom, you let him go, let him do what he needs to do. So, yeah.
That's the that's the insight right there. That's the insight
well,
right there.
I had to make it. Like I said, training camp was always important for me. I had to make it. 90 in Miami, 91 in Green Bay, 92 in Green Bay, 93 I made the team in Green Bay. Then I had the year I had, and then I was fine after that.
When you're looking at what the Bears are coming into in training camp this season, what's the storyline you're most focused on, or what player?
Oh, there's one storyline.
It's
It's Justin Fields and the development that Justin Fields has. The concern of the offensive line, can they mesh together? Will Tanyan push Kmet to the point where Kmet becomes expendable? Because Kmet he's an okay tight end.
Yeah.
I mean, he's nothing spectacular.
He's not baby Gronk.
Right. He's not baby Gronk by any stretch of the imagination. So we'll see what that dynamic looks like, and maybe they can propel each other to make the tight end position viable. Will Claypool become a player, or won't he become a player? And what are they waiting for in signing a defensive end like Yannick Ngakoue to rush the quarterback? What are you waiting for?
I mean, especially after
right. If that's the one thing you might need, you need to put pressure on the quarterback. Guess what? Pressure on your quarterback helps your quarterback.
Especially
helps your quarterback. You understand?
100%.
Because it gets you off the field. It gets him back onto the field, and it helps your young defensive backs that have been developing over the course of time. Then Eddie Jackson, is he going to be able to rebound and be the guy that he looked like he was going to be last year as opposed to the guy he was 2 years ago?
Yeah. When we had Carm on the pod, I said that the best thing that Ryan Pace ever did for Mitch Trubisky in 2018 was give him Khalil Mack. because the defense put him in
Right.
so many positions where he's starting at the 40. He's starting on the goal line because of a turnover. He's, you know what I mean? Like, there was so many
they're
times.
scoring points too.
Yeah. And they're scoring points,
they're
making
scoring
things easier
points.
for him, giving you more opportunity. Like, that was the best thing you could have done for him. When that defense fell apart, the offense had nothing, because now
Right,
you're actually
because
having to start at the 20
they had
and
nothing.
go down the field.
Yeah, they had nothing.
And so it's I think that, especially even hearing yesterday that the Bears are looking to add depth to the DB room, I'm very confused with what they're going to do with this defensive line. And I really want to see how they're going to attack, right? Like, if they come into the season with what they have now, you're talking about basically maybe being able to run stop, which is a thing they need to do and improve vastly in. But I don't feel like there's a lot of guys that are going to get a ton of pressure on the quarterback on this team.
Well, we don't know. That's your problem. You don't know. You'd feel better if Ngakwe was out there, especially on second and long and third and long situations. I don't know if you play him on first down. I have no idea. I don't know what you'd be paying him at that point, where you'd have the luxury of not putting him out there. I think the overall quality of the defensive line is better.
100%.
I think the quality of your defensive line is better, but unless you're Cortez Kennedy, unless you're Warren Sapp, those guys came in the league right away and dominated. They came in the league and they were forces to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
Unless you're those guys, it takes a little bit of time to be seasoned at the defensive tackle position, because the action's coming from everywhere and you're going to want to run too fast. You're going to want to get out of there. You got to learn how to slow things down. I don't even think Marcus Stroud and John Henderson were studs their first year in there. It took them a little bit of time. And then once they kind of figured it all out, then those guys were mainstays for 8+ years with Jacksonville Jaguars, and they were dominant.
Yeah.
And they made life easy on anybody that was coaching them. So can they have that ability? Might they have that talent? Maybe, but it has to come to fruition.
It feels like we have a lot of the other guy on this team right now, right? Like, I look at a guy like DeMarcus Walker or even Andrew Billings, right? Who they come in with nice sack season, Rasheem Green, right? Like, they coming off of 7 sack seasons, different things like that. But they were the beneficiary of the focus being on somebody else.
Sure.
Are they going to be able to replicate that here in Chicago? Right. I think that's why you try to go get a Yannick Ngakoue.
Right.
That's why you try to go find somebody who can be the focus.
Rushing next to Reggie White is a whole lot easier than rushing next to Gabe Wilkins.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or if Reggie's not there and you're with Sean Jones is a good pass rusher. I think he had 100+ sacks in his career, but Sean Jones wasn't Reggie White.
Yeah.
Nobody said, hey, let's focus on Sean Jones. Everybody was focusing on Reggie White. So, yeah, rushing with Reggie is a whole lot easier. So and not only that, but when you have Reggie, you're kind of dictating what they have to do. And you could tell what they're going to do pre-snap, how they plan on tackling them. Are they going to chip with the back? Is there a tight end that's going to come in and secure him with the tackle? Or are they going to slide 3 over to Reggie? And you're going to get half a guard if you're playing over to the offensive guard, and you're going to get the center coming to punch you in the face. So, the slide. So you kind of know what's happening and what's not happening. And then you can kind of dictate what you want to do off of that.
Right.
But, I mean, that's the great thing about having an elite pass rusher. You kind of it makes you force their hand, and you know what their hand's going to be. Once you get pre-snap, you know exactly how they plan on blocking.
And when those guys aren't in there, they can attack you a little bit.
Well, yeah, they can do what they want as far as protection, because you got no elite pass rusher out there.
Right. No, 100%.
And we don't know if there's anybody that's going to be elite on this pass rushing unit. We don't know.
Feels like they're riding with the rookies. Feels like they're going to say, listen, Javon, Zach, get out there and let's see what we got.
If you can go through the season and have 40 sacks after having only 20 last year,
yeah,
I think you're a whole lot better. If a defensive lineman is your leader in sacks this year as opposed to your safety, I think it's a whole lot better.
It does make a difference when your best pass rusher
as a defensive lineman
is the guy's not starting 30 yards back. You know what I mean? Hey, we appreciate you guys for tuning in and rocking with us for another episode of the Chicago Bears podcast. Your guys are coming through real blue, so make sure you check us out over on the YouTube side and tune in with that. As always, it's your boy Pat the Designer back at it again. The Chicago Bears podcast. Bear down.